Hey Internet, it's your old friend Dominic here with the All-American Casino Guide, a channel dedicated to providing you with all the tips, tricks, tutorials, and trivia that you're going to need to know about casinos and casino games. Today is a very exciting episode because we're going to be talking about the game of Razz, which is really just a cool name for a really cool game. But before we get into the game of Razz, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel because it's a great way for us to build it up. And also, if you haven't already, go ahead and ring that notification bell because it's the only way you're going to guarantee that you're going to be notified every single time we upload one of our wonderful tutorials that are going to help you win big at the table. The game of Razz is a very interesting variation on classic poker. It's more or less a game of low ball, 7-card stud with just a dash of Texas Hold'em thrown in for flavor. After all these subsequent rounds of betting, which there'll be 5 complete rounds of betting, you're going to have 3 face-down cards and 4 face-up cards that you're going to use to make your best hand. But in this case, your best hand is your worst hand possible. Now, just like the game of poker, you play with one standard 52-card deck of cards. But what's interesting about the game of Razz is that flushes and straights have no relevance to the strength or the weakness, in this case, of your particular hand. So the best hand you could possibly be holding in a game of Razz would be ace 2, 3, 4, 5, which normally would be a 5-high straight in a game of poker. But in a game of Razz, it is a 5-high, which is a really low hand. It's the best hand you could possibly be holding. Aces are always a low card, worth 1 in this particular situation. Now, the game of Razz starts off with each player having to determine what the table limits are. And what's really interesting about the game of Razz is that you have an upper limit and a lower limit. So depending on which round of betting we find ourselves in, it will determine which limit you currently find yourself at. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we explain through the various stages. I will have to say this game can be confusing at first, so you might have to watch this video multiple times or pause and rewind in order to fully understand this game. But I promise you by the end, you will understand it and you'll actually find it to be a rather interesting game, especially in the dynamic way betting has to occur. So the first things first is if you want to get yourself in a game of Razz, you're going to have to put in 20% of that lower betting limit. So for example, if you come to a table and the table has posted that it is a $10 and $20 limit table, to just get into the game and ante, you're going to have to give 20% of that lower limit. So that's going to be $2 in this particular situation. So let's go ahead and take a look at a demonstration and we'll see what that looks like. For this particular demonstration, I'm going to say that we just have 3 players sitting at a table and that this table has a $10 to $20 lower and upper limit. So 20% of $10, of course, is $2. So we're going to use these white chips to represent $1 each. So here's $2. So each player is going to go ahead and put in $2. Okay, great. We have 3 players. That gives each player 2 face-down cards. All right. Then we then move into the first round of betting, which is called Third Street. And the reason we call it Third Street is because now players, after they've put in their initial ante, are going to have to get a third card. This card, though, instead of being face down, is going to be face up. Now, the dealer button goes to the player that has the best card visible. And in this particular case, we are talking about the highest ranked card. So in this scenario, we have player 2 over here with an 8 of hearts. Now, what's important to note here is if for some reason 2 players in the Third Street happen to have the same ranked card. So for example, if player 2 and player 3 happen to have both had an 8 showing, then the player who has the best ranked suit is going to be the one who gets the dealer button and it has to act first. The ranking system, of course, uses the heart system from the game of hearts. So in that particular situation, spade is the highest ranked suit, followed by hearts, followed by diamonds, and finishing with clubs. So this player right here who has the hearts would be if you had a player over here, for example, who had the 8 of clubs. This player who has the 8 of hearts, hearts is ranked higher than clubs, so he would get the dealer button and would be the first to act. Now, we are currently in what's the betting round referred to as Third Street because we have 3 cards. So this player has a couple of options. Now, since they are the dealer, they have to at least make a minimum bet, which is essentially around a quarter of the lower limit. So the lower limit, as I've established in this particular example, was $10. Because I don't have any 50-cent chips, we're going to say it's just 20% for this example. So this player is required to make at least another $2 bet because that would be 20% of that lower limit. Now, the other option that the dealer can make is they can decide to what's known as complete the bet. If they complete the bet, then what they're going to do is they're going to raise their initial bet, which is currently sitting at $2, to the lower limit, which we established is $10. So I'm going to use these red chips to each represent $5 chips. So we're going to say that this player has said, oh wow, I got a great hand, I'm pretty happy completing the bet up to $10. Now, typically speaking, this doesn't happen too often, but I should mention it is a betting option in this particular situation. So what we have here now is player 2 has to choose to either fold their hand or they're going to have to match play the existing bet. So they would have to raise their bet up to $10, or they can actually go and raise even further. The raise is set by the bet limits of the table. So for the example here, if this player completes the bet to $10, player 2, like I said, can fold the hand, or they can match the play, raising their bet to 10, or they can raise it to 20. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and use these green chips for simplicity's sake, and these green chips are going to each represent $10. So this player right here thinks, oh yeah, you have an 8 high, I have a 2 high showing, that's a great hand, I'm going to go ahead and raise your $10 completed bet to 20. Now, player 1, we go back to player 1 over here, just, even though it's the third player I'm talking about, is going to be in a situation where, again, they have to choose to either fold their hand, saying, you know what, guys, the stakes in this hand have gotten too high, and the cards I'm holding are not really that bad in this particular case, because, in fact, you want to have the lowest hand possible. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, but you know what, I think I can beat you. I have a good hand. I'm going to match your $20 bet, and I'm even going to raise it another $10 because, again, $10 is the table limit at this current stage. Later on, the table limits will go up in the subsequent rounds, and we'll explain as we go on when that actually happens. But currently, in the Third Street round, which is the round we find ourselves in, if you want to know what round you're in, just always make sure to count how many cards you currently have. So right now we're in Third Street, because we have 3 cards. So this player decides to raise the bet even further, raising it to $30. This is subsequently the second raise. What's important to note about that is in any single round of betting, whether it be 3rd Street, 4th Street, 5th Street, 6th Street, or 7th Street, the most number of raises that can occur in a hand is 3. It locks out the maximum. So what we have here is this player saying, you know what, I think my hand is rather bad and is going to win all the money, so I'm going to raise to 30. And so it goes back to this player who was the initial player with the dealer chip, and they have, again, the choice to fold their hand or match the bet, or they can raise the bet even further. So we're going to go ahead and see a situation. We're going to maximize the situation here. So they're going to match that $30 bet. Okay, I'll remove these 2 red chips and replace them with 3 green chips. And they're even going to go ahead and raise. They're going to declare a raise and take the bet up to $40 in this particular situation. Now, what's important to note is this player right here raised, this player right here raised, and this player right here raised. That's 3 raises, so we have locked out the raises in this particular round of betting. So that means that this player over here who did the first raise has only two options at this point. They can either fold and say, you know what, guys, the terms in this hand have gotten far too high for me. I want to get out of the hand, or they have to go ahead and match play. So I'm out of green chips already. So I'm going to go ahead and just say all three players in this particular demonstration are happy playing for this monstrous amount of money, $40, just based on these three hands. This, just to let you know, would probably never happen ever in a game of Razz. The stakes have already gotten way out of control. But now that completes the round, so we can move into what's known as 4th Street. In 4th Street, we're going to go ahead and give each player a 4th card, starting with the player to the right of the dealer chip. So this player right here gets another face-up card. This player right here gets another face-up card. This player right here gets another face-up card. Now, what's important to know right when we start is the player that has, if any player right now has a pair showing in 4th Street, we then raise the betting limits to the upper limit. So if, for example, this player was showing 2 8s face up, then that means now we've moved the betting limits from $10 to $20 in this particular example that I've provided for you. But that is not the case in this particular example. All three players have normalized hands showing. Nobody has any pairs. Remember, just as I said earlier, flushes and straights have no bearing on the strength of your hand. And in fact, the best hand you could hold would be ace 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5 high hand overall. Now, betting then goes to whichever player happens to have the lowest card showing in this particular situation. So since this player has an ace showing, they remain the first player that gets to bet. Now, unlike the previous third street round, this player right here has an option to just check. And so they're feeling, hey, you know what? There's a lot of money in this pot, so I'm going to go ahead and just check. Now, this player right here then, of course, has the option of placing a $10 bet if they want to, or they can check. So for simplicity's sake and brevity's sake, I'm going to go ahead and say we have 3 rounds of checks. So the dealer checks, this player over here checks, and then this third player who unfortunately revealed a king, which is rather bad in a game of Razz, is going to also say check, because you know what? We want to see some new cards. So then we leave the 4th Street round of betting and move into what's known as 5th Street. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a natural order of things. So again, we give another player another face-up card, starting with the player to the right of the dealer. So, okay, interesting enough here. We have this player just got a pair of 4s, this player got a 6, and this player got a 10 of hearts. Okay, so now we have, again, all action then from this point on is not dependent on the strength of the face-up cards. It's all based on the dealer chip and where it's currently located. So we have this player over here with a pair of 4s showing. Even though they have a pair showing, they still think that the other cards that they're going to be either have face down or that they're still going to be dealt, because remember, you have 2 more cards coming in the near future. They still think their hand is very strong. And since we are currently in the 5th Street, that means that the betting limits have gone up to the upper limit. So as I established earlier in my explanation, you are limited to having a $10 and $20 limit. So now the limits are now $20. And what's interesting about it is, even though we say the word limit, it's more over compulsory bet. So we're going to then see that they're going to bet $20 on this particular hand. They like their hand. They're going to make a bet. Again, they had the option to check. They could have, for example, this player could have checked, and then we could have gone through another whole round of checking. But just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and say that this player likes their hand and wants to bet another $20. Now, player 2, the player directly to the left of that last player here, well, in my previous example, I'd said this is player 1. This player that's to the left of the last bet is going to have to decide if they want to fold their hand, meaning just, hand it over to the dealer and realize that they don't want to put any more money in, or they can match that $20 bet, or they can raise that $20 bet by the limit. So if they want to go ahead and match the $20 bet, that's fine. And then over here, we have this player who is the dealer. Now we have $20 is the bet, but they're gonna raise. So they're gonna go ahead and raise another $20 because that's the compulsory bet. You can see why the betting of this game becomes increasingly kind of crazy. So this player is not only matching that $20 bet, they're gonna match another $20 on top. So now the bet is $40. It goes to this player over here who says, you know what, I'm completely happy with that. I'm glad you did it. I'm gonna go ahead and match that. But what's important to note again is this player could have raised that previous raise, and then it could have went to this player who again could have raised even further, and that would have been 1, 2, 3 raises, which closes out the round completely with respect to the limits of raising in any particular round of betting. For the sake of this example, I'm going to go ahead and say that this player is going to match that $20 bet that the dealer had made after raising the initial one. And so this player right here is going, you know what, guys, this is getting completely out of control. I'm going to fold my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my cards from the game completely. And now we're just down to these 2 players, respectively. So now, since all money is good, we're then going to move into 6th Street. So 6th Street, again, each player is dealt a face-up card, revealing what they have to the table. Okay, so again, the first player to get dealt a card is going to be the player to the immediate left of the dealer. So we get another card here. Wow, this player is getting a pretty good hand, showing that they have a pair of 4s, but the other cards, 2, 4, and 3, very nice. Over here, this player having a little bit more difficulty with an 8 and 10 showing. That ace is rather nice, but it's still a lot more cards to show. Now, normally, with 4 hearts, you would be kind of concerned. But again, remember that in a game of Razz, flushes and straights are completely irrelevant. So they're pretty happy with that. So over here, we're going to go ahead and say that this player gets the first option to bet, check, or fold. Now, obviously, you wouldn't want to fold because there's no actual commit. There's no need to fold right now because nobody's made a bet. But this player right here, sitting, looks at their hand. They go, you know what? This is a really great hand. I love it. I'm going to go ahead and bet the maximum bet I can make at this point, which since we're in 6th Street, we're at that upper limit of $20. So they're going to go ahead and bet $20, 2 green chips on top. So this player right here has the option of either folding against that $20 bet, or they can go ahead and match that $20 bet, or they can raise that $20 bet by another $20 because that is the betting limit, or in case, really the betting minimum of any sort of raise. There are no half bets, there are no partial bets. What's important to note though is if for some reason a player finds themselves in a position where a bet puts all of their chips into play, into the pot, they are not committed to have to put more chips in. So for example, this player right here says, okay, I'm gonna bet $20, and this dealer over here is down to their last $10. They have no more money than that in current chips. So they're gonna go ahead and put $10 in, and that player then gets obviously refunded the excess amount of chips. No more money is really gonna be able to be put out because there's only 2 players. So we're maxed out in this particular situation. That is one situation that would maybe come into play if you start playing for increasing stakes. A player might find themselves with no more chips to play with. But for demonstration purposes, we're gonna say that didn't happen, and this player is perfectly happy. They have some more money, or they put some more money down, and they wanna match that $20 bet. So now both players are good. Of course, this player could have put even more on top, but they decide that that's pretty much their limit. Now, we then go, after all the money is good for this particular round, both players have had an opportunity to check, fold, raise, so on and so forth. We then move into the last round of betting, which is known as the 7th Street. Again, because there are now going to be 7 cards. The unique thing about 7th Street is that the last card dealt to each player is going to be face down. Again, the first card goes to the player directly to the left of the dealer. So both players get one final face down card. Now, for this example, again, we'll go through another round of betting. This player is again in the 7th Street, so that we are at that upper limit. So the minimum and maximum that they can bet right now is $20. They either think that they don't have $20 or there's enough money in the pot. For whatever reason, they're going to check. And then this player right here is going to decide to check as well, because you know what, there's enough money in the pot. We'll move to a showdown round. Of course, that could have gone differently. This player right here could say, you know what, I'm going to go and raise, and this player is going to fold. You know, the interesting thing about this is, you know, essentially playing for less money. If this player put more money in, but this player doesn't have any more money, they can still stay in the hand and be eligible to win as much money as they've wagered up until this point. But we have, in this example that I've provided for you, I know I've gone a little convoluted and confusing for you. That's why I said maybe you're going to have to watch this video more than once to fully understand this, but I hope I've done a good enough job explaining the game thoroughly enough for you. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave those as comments down below, because I'll try to be a little bit more clarifying if there's any questions about how exactly this goes. But we're going to say in the 7th round of betting, both players are completely happy with how much money is currently on the line. I mean, there's quite a bit right now. It looks like each player is but 40, 50, 60, 70, about $80 into this particular hand. So they think that's enough money. We're going to go ahead and go to a showdown. So both players are going to reveal their hands. All right. You know, they'll have 7 cards in total here. And then they'll try to construct the best hand they can. But when I say best, of course, I'm talking about worst. They want to make the worst hand possible. So the easiest thing to do is start taking out the pairs and the high cards. So in this particular situation, we'll start with the player to the dealer's right. So they have a pair of 4s. They obviously want to get rid of that. And they have a queen, which is a rather high value card. So they're going to drop that. And so what we've assembled here is essentially a 10 high. 2, 3, 4, 6, and 10. Now, this player over here, we look at what they have. They have a pair of 7s. Okay, so you want to throw that out. And the next highest card they have is this 10. So they're going to throw that out, leaving themselves with, let me arrange this a little bit for simplicity's sake, an 8 high, because remember, aces are low value. So ace, 3, 5, 7, 8. 8, of course, is lower valued than 10. So the dealer, or player 2 from my earlier explanation, is actually the winner of all the money in this particular pot. That concludes a singular round of Razz. Now, of course, like all games of poker, if in any round of betting, a player happens to bet a certain amount and then all players still in the hand decide to fold the hands, then that means that player then is entitled to take whatever's in the pot. Because if you're the only player actually risking any money, then you're the only one that's going to, you're the only one eligible to win the pot still. So you'll take the money anyway. Once you actually get down to it and start playing this game, you're going to find it to be a really interesting betting structure and a quite fun. Like I said, it's like low ball 7-card stud, but with some real interesting betting rules. And it gets a little volatile at times as far as how the betting structure goes. So in a short summation, you have 7-card stud and you want to make the lowest hand possible. The lowest hand being 5 high, flushes and straights don't count. And as far as the betting structure goes, remember that in the 3rd and 4th streets, you're at the lower limits, and in the 5th, 6th, and 7th street, you are automatically pushed into the upper limits, with an optional upper limit bet coming in the 4th street if any particular player happens to be showing a face-up pair. So Razz has quickly become one of my favorite variations on the game of poker. If you want to go ahead and share it with your friends, go ahead and make sweet love to that share button and put it up on social media. That way, your friends who also enjoy playing poker with you might be able to try it out at your next poker night. If you're confused about anything I happen to say, go ahead and leave it as a comment down below. And guys, if you enjoyed this video in general, go ahead and clickety-clack that like button. Give us a thumb doodle. And also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And ring that notification bell, because it's the only way you're gonna guaranteed to be notified every single time we upload one of these videos, like variations of poker or trivia videos. My name's Dominic. This is the All-American Casino Guide reminding you, play responsibly.